Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the MBOM podcast. I'm very excited to be continuing season 3 with another awesome interview. But before we get into the interview, just a quick message. I am very excited to have partnered with Book Yoga Retreats for this season of the podcast. I used bookyogaretreats.com to book my very first yoga retreat, and I loved it. It's a great platform for people who want to book a retreat or training, as well as for yoga teachers who want to lead a retreat. So if you're interested in finding a retreat or leading a retreat, you can check out mbomyoga.com/book yoga retreats. I've also launched a private community on Facebook for yoga teachers who want to learn more about business. You can join me at Yoga Business Badasses. You just have to request to come in since it is private, and I will let you in right away. And this is a great place to talk about things with your yoga business, questions, share wins, challenges, all that sort of stuff. And we're already at 100 members, so thank you for joining if you already have. And if you haven't, I would love to see you there. And so let's dive into today's episode. This is a little bit of a unique episode because we have a newer yoga teacher on the podcast. I usually talk to people who have been teaching for a number of years who can share their wisdom with, us who are newer yoga teachers. But Charles Du, my guest today, is a newer yoga teacher. He's new to yoga, the practice, the teaching, but he comes from a digital marketing background. He was a project manager. He was a software engineer for NASA. He's been a digital nomad for a number of years, and he hopped right into his yoga career and has become very successful very fast. So we talk about what that looks like for him. He shares some tips and tricks for all of you out there, as well as talks about his upcoming summit, which is the Yoga Career Summit, which is amazing for us business yogis. So without further ado, here's Charles. I'm very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Charles Du, who is joining me all the way from Taipei, Taiwan. Although he's originally Chinese American, he's been traveling all over the world. I saw on your website, Charles, that you're a digital nomad, a yoga teacher, you've got courses, and now you're creating the Yoga Career Summit. So you've got lots going on, which I'm super excited to talk to you about. But welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I feel like we have a lot in common, so I'm excited to hear more about your story and learn a little bit from you today. But I thought a great place to start would be to back up a little bit and talk about how you first got into yoga.
Sure, happy to share. So injuries actually led me to yoga. My first love has always been soccer. So as you mentioned, I'm a digital nomad, so wherever I go, I love playing soccer or football, depending on the country. And whenever I get injured, I always just do yoga, and I realized that yoga has like the same therapeutic qualities for me as physical therapy, and I just feel like immediately better. So I just kept kind of starting the conversation with yoga for the last few years, and in February I had a really bad injury. So I cliff jumped off of this platform that was 20 meters up in Vietnam, and then when I landed, it just did something to my shoulder. Like my arm went immediately up, and all the force of the water just pulled it in a direction that it wasn't supposed to be pulled. And I hurt my shoulder really, really badly. And it was really traumatic for me because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't play soccer. I couldn't run. I couldn't do pull-ups. I was depressed for a while. And the only thing that I could think of is, well, I need to go back to yoga because I need to heal myself. And fortunately, I ended up, moving to Taipei and living there for a while. And I found this amazing studio with lots of different types of yoga. I got exposed to yin yoga, restorative yoga, myofascial release, and all of these different styles kind of healed me. And then after I got healed, I was like, wow, what an amazing practice that can, heal people. And it inspired me to, go do my teacher training. So I got my 200 hours yoga teacher certification. And then I started teaching yoga. And now I'm organizing this online summit to kind of help other yoga teachers because I'm so passionate about spreading the love of yoga.
Yeah, that's a really amazing story. And it's something that I've heard quite a bit. It seems like a lot of yoga teachers come to yoga from a different sport or a different activity that they liked and having something happen to their body where they can't do it anymore. And then it's like, yoga is so addicting. It's like once you're going to it regularly, you can't stop. There's just something about it.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I think maybe for a lot of other people, just similar to me, like it's something on the surface, on the physical side, that kind of started the conversation on yoga. But after I went through yoga teacher training and I just learned the philosophy and the theory behind it and just the history, it just exposed me to all the depth that yoga has offered. And injuries brought me to yoga, but after I got into yoga, it changed my perspective on the world. So now whenever I'm living, when I'm connecting with people, when I'm talking to people, when I'm thinking about how I want to grow my career, like I've kind of drew inspiration for my learnings on what yoga is all about.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. I remember when I first started doing yoga, I was very much like, oh, I need to clench all my muscles in every pose because I have to get a workout. And then, I did teacher training and now I'm all about like, I just want to like breathe and be relaxed and I'll be strong where I need to be and I'll be relaxed where I need to be. And, it's all good. I feel like teacher training adds that entire depth to it where you learn about what's behind the practice. It's not just the physical component.
So true.
And so when you did your yoga teacher training, did you go in with the idea of like, this really changed me and I want to share this with other people and teach? Or were you just doing it as a way to like grow personally and then you decided to teach? Or what was your mindset at that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my intention has always been, I wanted to spend my time and invest my resources in experiences that grew me. And I think yoga teacher training really called out to me because, like I had this injury and I just wanted to get a better understanding of my body. So then later on, I can kind of prevent myself from getting hurt again. So at a surface level, it was kind of just to grow myself and to understand my body better. And then I had kind of like a second priority, which was just, I think yoga teacher training is one of those things where it's been passed on for like thousands of years where people are learning how to become yoga teachers. So I was really, I'm really passionate about education and learning. So from your research, you might have found I had this online education business and I just wanted to become a better teacher. So I thought maybe if I go through yoga teacher training, it would just make me into a better teacher. And later on, I can apply that to my business and I can do a better job growing other people.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And what type of stuff were you teaching before you started teaching yoga?
Sure. So I teach two topics. The first one is I teach people how to become software product managers. So if you imagine a software to be like a movie, the movie director would be known as the software product manager. So in my past career, I designed a ton of apps. I designed NASA's first iPhone app. I designed apps for Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So I have an online business that teaches people how to become that role. The second topic I teach is I teach people how to become successful digital nomads. So people that can travel and work at the same time. Because I've been traveling in the last 2 years in this, like the entire time when I was traveling, I was making sustainable income. And I was also I interviewed like dozens of other successful digital nomads. So that's another topic that I'm really passionate about teaching.
That's awesome. So you're like NASA software engineer turned digital nomad turned yoga teacher. What did your family and friends think, like now that you're teaching yoga when you were, a NASA software engineer in your past life?
I think they get kind of surprised. I think every time I talk to them, it's always like, oh, Charles, what are you working on now? And then I tell them something and they're like, wow, this is totally different and unexpected. But now that you mention it, I kind of get it. I think my parents, they still don't really, it doesn't vibe with them. It's more the digital nomad part because, I come from a really traditional Chinese family. And in their mind, the ideal life for me is to be like a doctor or an engineer and have a 9-to-5 job. And to share with them that I'm traveling the world, it just doesn't click with them. They think I have to either work and then play, or that's pretty much the only path. It doesn't really make sense to them that I can travel, enjoy all these experiences and work at the same time. So I think I still have to do some convincing or kind of share more examples.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my boyfriend and I are nomadic as well. So, and we work on the road. So we're digital nomads as well. And I think we don't come from like Chinese families. We're just, Canadian. But our parents as well are like, you do this? Does this really work? How do you do this? You have an online business? What does that mean? I don't get it. So I think it's like kind of this new age thing that more and more people are starting to do, that I think it'll just take, the older generations a little bit of time to understand, because it's so different from what they grew up with.
Yeah, it is. And I think from their generation, their main concern was security. Like, just to have a stable job and to be able to like feed the family is enough. And I think for people of our generation, we're so lucky to have them kind of give us the opportunity to be, financially secure. And for us, like, the important thing is growth. And after we realized, okay, there are other ways to grow, and maybe there are more effective ways to grow than just working at a desk, 9 to 5. Then we started thinking, well, maybe we can start traveling the world, and maybe we can grow our career that allows us to travel the world in like, a long and sustainable way. And then this starts to become, a possibility, and we just start, working on how to manifest it.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And so you graduate teacher training, you're living abroad. What did your career look like once you graduated your yoga teacher training?
Yeah, so I think in terms of my yoga career, I had pretty much nothing, because yoga is still kind of new to me. I started to really get into it just a few months ago. And after I went through yoga teacher training, I had a lot of the skills that I needed to teach inside a class. But, I didn't have a brand. I didn't have a following. So I pretty much had nothing to start from.
And so how did you build up your brand to get teaching, like opportunities, teaching classes?
That's a great question. So even though I didn't have a brand in the yoga world, I had skills, like business skills, in terms of like marketing and like just organization and just, being fluent with how, online events and digital marketing kind of works. I was very quickly able to kind of build myself a brand. So pretty much what I did was, as soon as yoga teacher training ended, I moved to Prague in the Czech Republic because I love Prague, spending time in Prague in the summer. And actually, as soon as I moved to Prague, I started teaching. So I started teaching like the first week I was there, and then I started teaching 2 classes. And then for the entire 2 months I was in Prague, I taught classes every single week. And eventually I built a brand, and I got press from even the local newspapers. And now in Taipei, it's kind of like the same thing. So I was able to use my digital marketing skills to kind of keep that momentum going of, wanting to teach and eventually finding teaching gigs. So I'm pretty grateful that's happened.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's amazing. I feel like more often than not, I hear yoga stories about teachers coming out of training and, there's so many yoga teachers. It's such a saturated market in a lot of places that they don't end up teaching for a while. I'm sure there's somebody listening who's like cursing you for having these skills, but obviously you worked hard for them. So can you share a little bit about the types of stuff that you did? So if somebody is listening and they're like, damn, how did this guy get classes so quick? What types of things can people be doing to get themselves out there?
Yeah, I'm totally happy to share everything that I know with your listeners. And I think, like you said, for people out there, they might feel like, well, this is incredible what this guy was able to do. But, as we both know, it's just a matter of, digital marketing and just having these business skills. So let me break it down like step by step. Okay. So as a yoga teacher, you want to teach classes. So the first thing that you have to get in place is a venue to teach. So even before I moved to Prague, I was already doing research to see what the yoga scene is like there. And one of the things I found was, a lot of people were teaching yoga in parks, and a lot of people were teaching yoga in like co-working spaces. So that to me was kind of like like an often overlooked venue, but to me it totally made sense because we have all these co-working spaces. You have a lot of, tech people who have like lower back issues. They're probably not exposed to yoga. And for these co-working spaces, they want to do like really fun programming, right? They want to build a community and not just be like, all right, this is a place for you to work. Like they want to have like happy hours and they want to have yoga. So I found this one venue, which it's called K10. It's one of the most beautiful co-working spaces I've ever seen like in the world. And it's built on top of this giant mansion that used to be the old Danish embassy, but they have this beautiful garden in the back. So I reached out to the community manager and I was like, hey, is it cool if I taught yoga for you guys? I'm happy to just teach a community class. I won't even charge you guys money. It'll just be great for your community. And she was so open to it. She's like, yeah, sure. Why not? So I was able to secure a venue even before I went into, moving to a new city. And that allowed me to kind of just get instant access to an audience list, which is all the coworkers like in the space. So I went there and I taught my first class, and I was like, okay, this is really fun. And people got a lot of value out of it. So now I have like repeated customers, and I was like, hey, that was really fun. Can I teach for you guys again? And she's like, yeah, that drew an awesome crowd. Why don't you come back? So now I'm like the resident teacher for this co-working space in Prague, and I'm teaching on a weekly basis. So that's basically how I started. Was number one, find a venue, and you don't really have to like run around like in person. You can do that if you want, but I would say look at those places that most people aren't looking. Like look at the parks, look at the co-working spaces. And another tip that I can share is I also found this conference that was going to happen on the second weekend that I was going to be in Prague. And this conference was looking for yoga teachers. So this conference was basically a Montessori school, or it was called the International Montessori Congress. So for those of you that don't know, Montessori is basically a way of teaching like kids. So like early childhood development. And every few years they have this huge like conference, kind of like the Olympics of Montessori style like teaching. And they love yoga, so they were looking for yoga teachers. And I emailed them, and they're like, okay, yeah, come teach for us. And I was like, okay. So I taught at a conference that had, that was attended by hundreds of people worldwide. In the morning, I taught a vinyasa flow class to them, and people loved it. So I would say that's another way to find a teaching opportunity. It's just to look at conferences and stuff, and just offer your services for free. So that's another thing I did. And then after I started teaching these regular classes, and I started to gain confidence, and I was like, okay, now I want to do something like even bigger. I kind of want to scale myself out. I started to use Facebook ads. And a lot of people look at Facebook ads. They're like, I see it on my news feed, so somebody out there is making this work. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know how complicated it is, but there's something there. And for me, since I have experience running Facebook ads, I knew like the potential and how quickly you can kind of, drum up interest. So I spent literally like less than $20 marketing my next week's class. And I got a packed class. I had like 20 students come in. And what's amazing about it is like when I run Facebook ads, I don't really need to have like a solid web page. Like all I had to do was have a Facebook event, and all people had to do was like RSVP for the event. It had all the details there, and I was able to use Facebook ads to kind of slowly grow my customer base. And it also kind of freed me from teaching, some of the more traditional stuff, and kind of teach some of the more exciting stuff, which I can kind of get into it later. And, running Facebook ads also led to the attention of some press. So later on, I got written up by this newspaper, and later on, for another website that was kind of like the Financial Times of Prague. And all that free press happened because, I was running Facebook ads, and people were, getting a wind of the yoga that I was teaching.
That's so cool. So you spent less than $20. You have a website now, but did you have a website at that point?
It was very basic. It was maybe 2 pages. And the website, yogacharles.com, basically just said, all right, I teach yoga. Here's a little bit of my background. That's it. So it wasn't anything. Like somebody can put up that website in like 2 hours if they wanted. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you were just creating Facebook events for the different things you were doing. And then what were you setting like the target audience and stuff for?
Just people who are interested in yoga. So, I thought about who are some of the yogis that I typically see in yoga classes. And there were people who were, I don't know, like 21 to like 35, like men and women, people that were living in Prague, run the ad. And then it just brought in a lot of those types of people. One thing that I want to clarify. So when people, like, let's say you're thinking of doing Facebook ads and you want to know, like, how do you target those people? There's a way for you to just target people by interest. So I basically put in yoga and I put in spirituality and I think meditation. I think those are the 3 interests. And I use those 3 interests to kind of craft my targeting. And for the campaign, I basically just created with a goal of people RSVPing to my event. So I created like a Facebook event and I created a campaign. I said, hey, I want you to drive RSVPs to this event. And I want to target people that are from 31 to like, 35 or 34. I forgot what the number was. And then I launched the ad. I gave it a budget of $20 and it just left it running.
That's awesome. And so then with this event, like this was one of the classes that you were teaching regularly?
Yes. So I basically, all right. So week 1, I was teaching my regular class in K10. And that class was basically just yoga basics. And that was not like, I didn't turn on Facebook ads for that at all. So after I taught that class, I was like, okay, the venue's legit. I want to scale this a little bit more. That's where I turned on the Facebook ads for next week's event. And basically the lead time that I had was, I would finish teaching on Thursday and I was like, okay, Friday, let me just put up some ads. And then I would run ads Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, to promote the next Thursday's class. So then next Thursday, I can kind of, bring in all the repeat students that I had from the first class and bring in a bunch of new students for the second class. And then after that was done, I was like, okay, maybe now I can teach something that's more fun, that appeals to a broader audience. So I changed my Facebook ad a little bit more. And then on the next week, I drew in even more students.
Interesting. And just watching that happen, did you see an increase and a change in the people who actually showed up?
Yeah, I mean, it grew. So for my first class, I had maybe like 8 people, and those were people that, were working in the co-working space. The second class was probably like 12 people, and then the third class, it was like, I think 18 to 20 people.
Nice. So you saw like consistent growth with it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that also helped is after the second class, I realized I can kind of put a fun spin on this that would draw people that never would even think about taking yoga before. And then if I can make it into a cool theme that resonates with those other newbies, then it would kind of increase the audience. And it did.
Okay, cool. What type of stuff did you teach that was like a little bit different from just like yoga basics or yoga flow?
So I taught beer yoga.
How did that go?
It went great. So I got inspiration from just looking at, the videos that's propped up in everyone's feed about beer yoga. And I didn't just want to make it just, I'm teaching beer yoga for the sake of beer yoga. It was more kind of like, hey, let me just teach yoga fundamentals. So I taught like a yoga basics class. And I wrapped it around like the branding or the theme of beer yoga. And that attracted a lot of people that didn't even think about doing yoga. They just wanted to experience something fun. So I ended up teaching beer yoga class, and basically I used the beer bottle as a prop. And that kind of helped people get into the right alignment and also raise their awareness for the taste of beer. So I kind of position it as like, hey, just like when you're wine tasting, we're going to do a little beer tasting. And by building in, the consumption of beer into the yoga sequence, we're going to help you raise your awareness and help you align better because we're going to use the beer bottle as a prop.
That's awesome. I've seen that video that's been going around on Facebook, and I'm in a couple of like private yoga groups, and somebody posted it in one of them and asked opinions. And I was actually really shocked by how many people felt so strongly against it. If you're comfortable, I'd love to kind of like talk about that a little bit, because I kind of come from the opinion of, there's people who think that yoga is not for them. And I think that yoga should be for everyone. And if it takes, balancing a beer bottle on your head or, taking a sip of beer in boat pose or something like that for them to be like, wow, this yoga thing is kind of cool, I feel like I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my perspective. So I totally agree with you. I think beer yoga is like a very polarizing topic. And I think, from what I've learned during my yoga teacher training and the history of yoga, like if you think about it, like yoga means union, right? And it's about becoming one with yourself, becoming one like physically, like intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually, and becoming one with the universe. And if practicing beer yoga, brings you closer to yourself and brings you closer to the community and the universe, that to me is yoga. I think for those people that are strongly against it, maybe they take a more conservative approach on like, this is how yoga is taught. But I think if you rewind time and you think about, yoga dating back to all the Vedas and just the first writings, asana wasn't even a big part. Maybe there's like a couple of lines, and then that kind of got expanded because, people felt like, well, if we expand into asanas, this is useful stuff. If we teach people the right alignment and stuff, this will help people, sit down and meditate for longer periods of time. That will eventually help them become one with infinity. So I think just the philosophy of yoga is like first order principles, and it evolves with time to make it relevant with society. And eventually stuff like beer yoga pops up. And I think if it, falls in alignment with the first order principles, which is to bring everyone together, and bring you closer to your body, then I think it's yoga. I mean, like if you think about how yoga was imported to the US, like in the beginning, it was imported not because, hey, like here's all the philosophical stuff. It's like, hey, look at all these really cool poses. And those poses inspired a lot of Hollywood actors and actresses to kind of spread the word. And that eventually became an awesome thing. And now when people go to yoga classes, people get exposed to the beauty of it. And we both know that there's more depth, but there's some sort of a gateway drug that attracts people into yoga, right? And I think beer yoga is one of those things. And I think if it's taught the right way, like for me, when I teach, I teach people how to sit using a beer bottle. I teach people that, if you can balance a beer bottle like on top of your thigh, like we play this little game where, I have them trying to balance the beer bottle on their thigh, and most of them can't do it. And the reason they can't do it is because their hips are too tight. And then all of a sudden they realize, okay, well, if I put some stuff on my sitting bones, like a block or some blankets, now my thighs are parallel to the ground. Okay, when my thighs are parallel to the ground, I'm sitting comfortably with a straight spine. And when I'm sitting comfortably in a straight spine, I can meditate with ease. And all of these kind of stems from using the beer bottle as an alignment prop to raise their awareness. And I think in some ways that's, an even more effective way to teach people how to sit comfortably. And it's something that people can take away and apply to all their future practices.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I was just thinking about there's probably somebody out there who's like, well, why can't you just use like a cup of water or something, which is maybe a fair argument. Did you have any sort of like, okay, we're mixing like alcohol with yoga, like that's not right type thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people kind of comment on that kind of stuff, but number one, like you don't have to use alcohol. Like, I had students that used sparkling green tea, just another beverage that was in a bottle. And I think yoga is something that's personal, right? There are things that you can do that's like less correct than others. But I think if it falls in, like, I think if it falls into like the 8 limbs of yoga, like don't do any harm, like nonviolence, and it follows alignment with all those principles, then you're good. So I think alcohol is one of those things where like, unless you're driving, if you're drinking responsibly, it will kind of enhance the experience. And when it's taken in responsibly, it's a good thing. And kind of to fall in line with that idea, like my plan is to teach wine yoga by the end of the month, because I'm planning to go through yin yoga training and really get into yin and restorative. And I've taken wine yoga classes, and they're amazing. Mm-hmm. Like it's like a restorative practice, and you take a sip after a few minutes in a pose, and it really helps you like relax your body. So yeah, I guess that's a long way of me answering like how I approach that question of, the influence of alcohol, like in the class.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for answering that. You're the first person that I've talked to who's actually taught beer yoga. And yeah, like I said before, I I saw the video that was going around on Facebook, and I was really shocked by, some of the very, very strong negative opinions, because I'm like, if more people are going to do yoga, that's great. I mean, if we're going to sit there and beer bong and get really drunk, then that's probably not the same thing. But drinking one beer can bring, those benefits to yoga. And it can also just be a fun way to get new people to try the practice.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned just now that I thought is really important is, the intention matters a lot. Mm-hmm. The intention matters from the teacher, and that gets passed on to the students. So my intention was to spread the love of yoga and teach, yoga using the right alignment and using the beer bottle as a good prop. And I think that's why it was an awesome class. Now, for some teachers, if they teach yoga just with the sort the sole purpose of just making it into a marketing thing and not really incorporating the philosophies of yoga, then I would say that you might need to rethink your intentions. But I think the intention matters a lot.
Yeah, definitely. That's massive for sure. So you taught that in Prague, and then are you planning to teach that in Taiwan as well?
Yeah, I'm planning to teach in Taiwan as well. Right now, I'm pretty much going through the same process. Number one, find a venue, and I'm looking for venues that are often overlooked. It's really hot in Taipei right now. It's in the 90s or the 30s, for people that are in Celsius. It's probably not very comfortable to teach in a park. So now I'm probably looking for a studio to rent. And I think I can make the economics work where I charge people for beer yoga and then just kind of use that money to pay for the venue. And do the same thing, quickly find a venue and then use Facebook ads to kind of promote the event and then just teach it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what other lessons have you learned through your yoga career? I know you haven't been teaching that long, but it seems like you've really dove into the teaching, dove into the practice, and it seems like you've learned a lot in a short period of time.
I have. And I think that's one of the lessons I learned. It's just the importance of learning and the importance of intentionally learning. From all the things that I've done in the past, I realized that there are different qualities in terms of learning. You can learn from experience, which a lot of people do, and it's great, but it's also the slowest and the most painful way of learning. A much faster way is to learn from an expert. And whenever I started to realize, okay, if I want to learn a topic and how I'm going to do it, it's just I'm going to find out the experts and learn that way. That's been some of the fastest growth for me. So to give you an example, yoga teacher training. People pay thousands of dollars to go through yoga teacher training just to learn from an expert and get immersed. And they hit a growth spurt, right? After my yoga teacher training, I was like, okay, I want to learn more. So I went to a yoga festival. So I went to this yoga festival called Udaya Live, which was in outside of Sofia in Bulgaria. And I met so many world-class teachers, and it just added so much more perspective to life and the way I teach. So I think that's one of the lessons learned is for your podcast, for example, it's amazing because you bring all these experts on board and you share all these all this wisdom with your audience, and the people that are listening to this podcast are probably wow, this is amazing stuff. And imagine if you had to learn all of this from scratch and you had to learn from experience and how painful that would be. Mm-hmm. So I would say one of the fastest ways to grow is to learn. And one of the fastest ways to learn is to find experts that can kind of teach you this kind of stuff. And the more you're intentional and the more you kind of strategically find experts that want to teach you the things that you want to learn, the faster you will grow. And the faster you will become your best self or reach your fullest potential.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there is definitely stuff you can learn from experience. I think teaching, for example, is something that, the more you teach, the more natural it feels, actually standing in front of a room of people. But in terms of how to actually have a successful yoga teacher career, I feel like you can kind of fumble your way through that, or you can talk to people who are like, wow, you seem to have done this really well. Like, tell me how you did that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's like you need the theory and the practice part. It's like when you're in yoga teacher training, the more theory you know, the stronger the foundation you're going to have, but you still need to go out there and actually practice. But knowing the theory really well will help you accelerate in your practice by learning alignment, learning anatomy, like that will get you to practicing the right poses at the right time, like faster. And it helps you like teach other people like the right alignment and the poses faster because you had that, that knowledge base to work from in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And so you came back to Taipei from Prague, and you've started the same process with finding teaching gigs. How have you found the teaching landscape in Taipei versus Prague?
I would say it's kind of similar in terms of, yoga is exploding. Like there's lots of studios here and people pay a lot of money to learn and get access to yoga. Like just to give you some numbers, the studio that I'm in right now, it's also the same studio where I got inspired by all those teachers, after I got my injury. I pay $225, per month.
Whoa. That's so much money.
That's so much money, right? But what I get is I get access to like multiple classes per an hour. And I basically learn from all these world-class teachers. And one of the teachers that really inspired me last time, I'm now planning to take yoga teacher training from her, like starting tomorrow. And she's the one that's going to be teaching like yin yoga, restorative yoga. She just got a book published. She's traveled the world. She's like learned from Sarah Powers. So you have this collection of world-class yoga teachers in this studio that's basically immaculate. Like you basically get, like you check in, you get this class card, you show up to class, all the mats are already set up, they're clean, they have like a full staff cleaning crew. There are rest areas where you can take naps. There's like bolsters and blankets and towels like everywhere. So it's really kind of like, this is kind of like yoga heaven. And people pay like yearly memberships. Like I pay $225 per month, but people pay like 1 year at a time to get access to studios like this. And there's lots of like little mini boutique studios, where you can drop in and stuff. There's acro yoga, there's yoga in the park. So there's definitely interest there. It's just a matter of kind of promoting yourself, and then, finding a venue to teach. And yeah, that's what Taipei's like.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to hear about, the difference between, the Canada teaching scene, the American teaching scene, the Asian teaching scene, the European teaching scene, because I feel like it's different everywhere that you go. But the biggest thing that I hear is that consistently is that it's exploding. Yoga's exploding everywhere. So lots of opportunities for us teachers.
Yeah, totally. And I think the teachers that are really going to thrive are the ones that, number one, they have their teacher, like they have their fundamentals down. So they're a really good teacher. And also they have like, the marketing skills that's needed to kind of, share their brand with the rest of the world and make people care and make people remember them. And then it's just a matter of like putting yourself there and then just saying yes to all the offers that kind of come in.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And so you are in the process of launching a summit called Yoga Career Summit. Can you tell me a bit about where the idea for that came from, what the process of actually launching that has been like? I know it's not out yet, and then just a little bit more details for listeners.
Yeah, sure. So the idea came up when I was in yoga teacher training, and I had, 10 classmates with me. And as we kind of talked about, what are we going to do after yoga teacher training, we realized, well, a lot of us didn't really have a clue. I mean, we kind of got the skills of, teaching yoga inside the class, but outside the class, there are all these pieces that are missing. Like, how do you plan retreats? How do you become confident teaching beginners when, like, during yoga teacher training, you're teaching your classmates, which are all pretty much experienced yogis? How do you brand yourself? How do you, like, grow a following? How do you land your first teaching gig? So there are all these questions, and we just didn't have access to the same expertise, or our teacher was so busy because she had a packed curriculum that she wanted to teach us. There's no way for us to kind of cover all the things that's outside yoga class. And I knew just from like my research, like most yoga teachers don't make it. Like they just don't become successful, not because they don't have the skills needed to teach an awesome class, but it's because they don't have the right skills to teach outside of class. And it's not because they're not passionate. Like everyone in my class was so passionate and they just wanted to like, jump straight in, but they just didn't know how to channel that energy and that passion towards things that would really help them grow their careers. I mean, I was kind of lucky because, I've been a career coach. I have some digital marketing skills, and I kind of knew how to kind of grow my yoga career. And with the example that you kind of teased out with my time in Prague, I was able to do it right away. And it was pretty easy because I had those skills. So that's where the inspiration came from. And the way I kind of manifested that into an actual thing that I think will be super valuable to all the teachers out there is by forming this online virtual summit, which is essentially like an online conference, and finding the best yoga teachers that I know and the best entrepreneurs that I know, and then inviting all of them to come together and share their wisdom with all the yoga teachers out there. And just to share my intention is to grow as many yoga teachers as possible. So if somebody out there wants to learn these skills that's going to grow their career and then help them become successful, they can attend the summit for free. Like we have still like free passes available, and all you have to do is make it a priority to learn and just go to the website, yogacareersummit.com, sign up for a free pass, and you'll be able to get these sessions for free.
That's awesome. So what was the process of actually reaching out to these teachers? It was people you knew that you'd gone to classes of, or just people you'd heard about online, or how did you choose these people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I knew the most important thing first is to get like the curriculum down. So the first thing I did, even before I started recruiting speakers, was to talk to my, fellow classmates and my friends, who are at different points in their career. And I just wanted to kind of find out what their struggles and their challenges were. For some, it's like very early in their teaching career. So they were wondering stuff about like, how do I overcome fear and just teach a class full of beginners? How do I start a private client business like one-on-one? How do I build a brand? How do I build a following? And from some of my friends who are a little bit more experienced, they wondered stuff like, how do I organize a yoga festival? How do I further my, teacher training, and how do I select the best training that's for me? So I pretty much created this huge list of struggles and challenges. And, as an ex-engineer from NASA, like I'm really good with organizing stuff. So I pretty much took all those topics and I organized it into a curriculum that matches 3 themes. And these are the 3 steps that every single yoga teacher needs to go through to grow a successful career. So the first step is to become a confident and authentic teacher. Like number 1, you just have to become a really, really good teacher, and the rest don't matter. And after you know how to do that, the second thing is you need to grow a passionate following, right? So you need to go out there, find your tribe and grow that following. And the third step is to figure out how to create sustainable sources of income, because you don't just want to rely on one yoga studio, and sometimes shitty things could happen. Like you might get injured, or like your classes just won't work out, but you really want to diversify your sources of income. So there's lots of different ways. Like, maybe you can like have an online course. Maybe you can like run amazing retreats around the world, have like a private one-on-one client practice. So the third step is to build sources of income. So after I kind of figured out this curriculum and the skills I needed to teach, I went out there and I found the best teachers to teach this kind of stuff. And I was really fortunate because the universe just said, hey, there's this yoga festival that's happening in Bulgaria, and it's only a short flight away from Prague. So you might just want to go to that yoga festival and then meet some of those teachers. So I went over to that festival and I met a lot of these like world-class teachers, and I shared with them my vision, my mission, and they could see like the passion and just, how organized I was. And a lot of them just said yes. So I ended up signing up I would say like a third of all the teachers, that taught at that yoga festival. So I have, somebody like Daniel Scott, who's really good at kind of sharing the wisdom of how to overcome fear and all this like inner mindset work. I found Emily Claire Hill, who runs this amazing like boutique yoga studio in London. She's also like a Lululemon ambassador. So I was able to meet a lot of those wonderful teachers like Andrea Markham, who's like a published author, and she teaches in LA, and she shared her wisdom on how to find your unique teaching voice. And the list kind of goes on. So I eventually put together a group of 25 speakers, and now it's just a matter for me to kind of like get the wisdom and help them kind of share it, and then put it together into this 5-day session that people can attend during those 5 days for free and kind of share that wisdom with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so when does the summit kick off, and how can people join?
Yeah, so the first day of the summit is going to be September 24th. It's a Sunday, and people can join basically between now and September 24th. If they go to yogacareersummit.com, we still have a limited number of free passes, and they can just register and they can put their email. And during those 5 days, a lot of these sessions are pre-recorded, so they're just going to be released, and they're going to be available for 48 hours from the time they get released. So that means it doesn't matter what time zone you're in, it doesn't matter where you are. If there's a topic that really resonates with you, you can access it for 48 hours. And for those that can like watch all the sessions, or they want to access the sessions later, we do offer an all access summit pass that you can buy. And this is kind of like our business model, because we're making this into a business so we can continuously grow yoga teachers long term. So with every single all access pass that you buy, you get lifetime access to all the content. You get like this goodie bag that's filled with all these bonuses, like Udaya.com, which offers movie quality online classes, just gave us pretty much like a 4 months free trial that normally costs $48 for like 4 months. So, buying an all access pass gets you 4 months of free yoga. And then also if you buy the all access pass, we will donate a pass on your behalf to the Africa Yoga Project. So we partnered up with a nonprofit. So every single pass that, we sell, we're donating something, to someone in need. And that's going to help grow yoga for them as well. So it's super exciting. And I invite everyone just to come to yogacareersummit.com just to check out our speakers.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It sounds like you've got some really great people and topics, and, also good cause on the side as well.
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to have a lot of people like invest their time and, place their faith in what I can do. And now it's just a matter of spreading the word. And thanks so much for having me on your, wonderful podcast. And so happy to share my wisdom.
Yeah, of course. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. And so people can find your personal stuff at yogacharles.com. Is that right?
Yeah. So my personal website is yogacharles.com. Yoga Career Summit is yogacareersummit.com. Same Instagram handle, Yoga Career Summit. Those are the best places to find me.
Amazing. And there'll be a link for that in the show notes and on the description for this episode and whatnot. So if anyone listening wants to check that out, definitely recommend that. And thank you so much for your time today, Charles. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And really inspiring work that you're doing. I think we're aligned on the same mission, and so happy to help you grow other yoga teachers out there.
Definitely. All right, there's the interview with Charles Du. I hope that you guys all enjoyed that you got lots of value out of it. And I hope that you're able to check out the Yoga Career Summit. I know I'm definitely going to be checking it out, and I'm super excited to learn from some other yoga teachers. So you can find all the show notes at www.mbomyoga.com. You can find me on social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga on Instagram and Facebook. As always, thanks so much for listening, and namaste.